Welcome to Avoice, a voice for creators. I'm your host, Daniel Norton. In this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the philosophy of being a creator and how we can express ourselves through our art, and sometimes that might be the only way we can do it. So I was driving in my car yesterday, and a song came on the radio, an old song by Jim Croce that's called I Have to Say I Love You in a Song. Pretty sure that's the name of it. That's definitely what he says in the chorus. And it really stuck with me. First of all, it's a cool tune, and I was listening to it. But it occurred to me that oftentimes as artists, we do our art or perform our art or create our art in order to express something that is hard or maybe even impossible for us to express any other way. Sometimes I think that, at least in my case, and I'm curious, you can call in and send me a message and let me know what you guys think, that I don't even necessarily know that I really want to say something exactly. There's a feeling inside that just says, create this, do this, create this image, or create the images this way today. So when I get the subject in front of me, I express myself through lighting, through composition, through the way my subject acts or looks based on our interactions, right? The interconnection there, the banter back and forth with talking, the quiet moments, just the time before we shoot, the time where we're looking at the images. These all help to create a mood on the set. And that mood will carry a feeling, and that feeling is something that's inside that I'm trying to get out, right? That I'm trying to put out there to the world. And it's really interesting that we don't always know. I guess that's the part that I want to say. I suppose if you're actually writing something down, like in the case of a song, you may know exactly what you're talking about if you're being really direct with it, but maybe not. Sometimes we write something or say something or make a photo or a video or make music, and on the surface, it's about one thing, right? We're talking about this subject in the song, but in fact, there's so much more to that, right? There's so much more below that. I remember staying on the music area and musicians that I reference a lot. I was watching an interview. It was like a song thing with Bruce Springsteen, and I remember he went through this entire song saying, "This means this. This is this. This means this." And then at the end, he just stopped and he said, "But when I was writing the song, was I thinking all that? No, but I was feeling every bit of it." And I think we can sometimes surprise ourselves as artists with what we create when we let ourselves just do what's inside of us. Just instead of following the pattern that we believe we should be doing as artists. Oh, well, I have to shoot with blue gels in the background because that's popular now, or I need to shoot headshots this particular way, or I need to do this commercial project, or I have to shoot the video this way or interact with the camera this certain way. And instead, let the artists in us guide us. It got us this far, right? We can say, oh, well, here we are, we're moving along, we're making photos, and then all of a sudden we hit a wall, and maybe that wall is because we're trying to force ourselves down a route that we don't necessarily want to go. We don't know where it is exactly we want to go, but we don't even know that that's not the right way in our minds. But underneath, right, there's something inside of us that says, you know what, that's not right for you. And that's why we lack the motivation to do it. So you might be steaming ahead with the idea that you're going to start a actor's headshot business. And then as you're going through it, you maybe realize your heart's not in it. This isn't really what I want to do. I thought it was going to be something else. I wanted to interact with artists, but in fact, what I'm doing is something different, or maybe not, right? Maybe it's exactly what you thought it was going to be. There's a lot of photographers that I know who switched kind of specialities because some random job or two came up. They were doing one thing and they were like, oh, we want you to shoot this project. It's like outside of your wheelhouse because we want something different, a different angle on it. And then next thing you know, that's their specialty because they're like, wow, I really like doing this. I really like shooting architecture now. I never thought I would have before. I was always doing product photography. but being outside and being freed up and not having as much control in some sense, although the architectural photographers out there can tell me about their control, it might be different, right? You might enjoy it in a different way, and you didn't even realize you would. So that's more of a commercial sense. But as far as an artist and just creating for yourself, I think sometimes we need to sit down. I was saying to myself the other day that I'm going to kind of clean out some of the cameras and stuff that I'm not using. And I do that every once in a while because I often collect cameras, mostly analog cameras, not so much as collect and put on the wall, although some of them sit there now. More collect as in I pick them up for certain projects, or I think that there's something special about the camera. And for me, anyways, as an artist, one of the things that helps motivate me to try new things is to use new equipment. It puts new limitations and opens up new doors. I was having a conversation the other day. I have a lot of conversations with some photographer friends of mine, and we're talking about that. I said, when I used to do photo shoots, a portrait, for instance, I would have, let's say, my Rolleiflex. I would have a 35 millimeter camera, maybe like a Nikon or something. I had a Polaroid camera back when that was, one that you could do manually, and a 4x5 camera. Like I had all these different cameras, and I would often lay them all out, and I would grab and load the camera that felt right at that moment for what we were doing. If it was a very posed, very powerful shot that was heavily lit with a singular image, you didn't need to take a bunch of it, I would use my big view camera, right? If it was something fast and jumping around and moving, changing constantly, the lights moving, maybe I'd use a small format camera. And these cameras changed the way that I worked. Because if it was, I need to shoot something fast and jumping around and changing, but I only had the big camera, I had to rethink how I worked. And vice versa, right? If you got a 35 millimeter camera and you can shoot really fast, like most of us do now because we have digital cameras, it changes the vibe if you allow yourself to use that. But you could say, well, you know what, I'm going to slow down and try to take this like I would with a different camera. And that's worked for me before. I'm not saying that you should go out and buy a bunch of cameras. In fact, these days it's probably impractical unless you're doing it as a hobbyist. I think most people get one or two, maybe because they have a backup, digital cameras, and if they want to be a square shot, they just set it to shoot square. If they want it to be 16:9, if they want it to be 6:4:5, if they want it to be black and white, all these things are things we can do in the camera or in post, most likely shooting RAW plus JPEG, so that we can allow ourselves to create what we want after the fact. But the problem with that, in my mind, anyways, for me as a creator, is that what we are wanting to create, the energy, the idea, the feelings that we have when we're on set with the subject are often much different than the feelings, the situations that we have when we're back at our office or studio looking at two large screens in front of us with editing software and every option possible in front of us, right? When the subject's there on the set, we need to make a decision, right? We're making decisions at that point. And I'm not going to say you don't make decisions when you process images. Obviously you do, but it's a little bit different. And sometimes it's not the same. And of course, this could be good, right? It might be that you had this idea that you thought was great on the set, and then when you come back and you know what, this is actually better if I do this. Sure, that does happen. I'm not going to deny that. But the reality is that sometimes we lose the initial feeling that we had when we made the images in order to get more of a perfect, Mayer quoting, perfect image, right? We come back, we had this idea of shooting with this, we saw this great light coming through the window, it was blown out, and there was such a feeling of energy or sadness or love or whatever you want coming through the thing, telling a story. And then we get back to the studio and we put it in our computer and we say, oh man, our highlights are blown out here. Oh, our shadows are too dark. And we start doing all the cool stuff we can do. And again, I know you can do this in the darkroom, but it's so easy to do digitally that we do that. And what we end up with a lot of times, especially if we do this commercially or with the idea on a commercial, is we lose the feeling, the meaning, the reason that we were creating the image in the first place. And I really think we don't want to do that. I think as an artist, we want to always hold on to that feeling, even if we don't know exactly what it means. There's something in your gut, in your heart saying, hey, shoot this way, do this thing, interact this way, make this exposure. In an ideal world, in my mind, that would be what is delivered as a final product and not something that we look and we go, oh, you know what, I would do that, but everybody's doing lens flares now on Instagram, so let me get the fake light tool and go in here. Oh, I'm going to desaturate now. Oh, I can make this one air quoting again, look like film by making it look terrible, which I never quite understood what that meant, but that's a rant for a photo channel. Here we're just talking about art in general. But yeah, I wonder, and I think, and oftentimes when I look back at images after the fact, like I remember that what I was saying to one of my friends who I used to show when I was shooting a lot of this really kind of raw stuff that if you follow me on YouTube and Instagram and stuff, you're going to start seeing more of that because I'm going to start putting that out there. It's a little bit older, but it's from a period where I shot a lot of different stuff and I really didn't show it so much. So I want to showcase it now, and I'm going to now I'm looking at it with a different light, right? Almost like a curator looking back at it. But a lot of times I would shoot these images in such a, for lack of a better word, frenzy, right? Creating something that was just raw and in the moment. I'd have which is so funny for me, had the music up blasting, which I never do on commercial shoots. We'd be in the moment, would be there with the subject, we'd be experimenting and trying. And a lot of times when I looked back at the images, I would be surprised at what I had. And sometimes, I don't want to say shocked, but sometimes like, wow, I don't even really, I remember doing it obviously, but the exact moment I can't believe that like that's what I created, but I was creating it and it felt real and right and good in the moment. And I was leaving that stuff like that. I was leaving it raw, even though I knew that this is not the stuff that I'm going to put on. Hey, let me show you how to make a video on YouTube, because your subject, what's interesting about that is a lot of people like to look at funky and edgy and punky, blah, 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 gritty, whatever you want to call it, images. But very few people want to look for a YouTube video of how to do that. So you end up, doing stuff that's a little bit more generic. So if you are forgetting about YouTube videos for a second, if you are creating for a more commercial market, you might be holding yourself back. And if that's not allowing you to say the things that you need to say, want to say with your art, the things you can only say with your art, then I think you need to consider doing other work. I think you need to consider doing, we'll call personal work, which I always hate that term because I feel like all my work is personal, but let yourself shoot. Go into some shoots not expecting anything but an amazing experience. This is to photographers, or you're a painter, or you're a musician. Go in there and jam. Write freely as a writer, write poetry, or just write notes or little postcards to yourself. Do things that are different and that you just feel a compulsion to do. Do them when you feel that way. Do them when you feel that way. Don't hold it back. Let it come out, because that may be the only way that you can say the thing that you really need to or want to say. Because ultimately, that's why we're doing this. And your vision, your voice, your expression is what will ultimately keep you around or relevant or whatever you want to call it. Not a certain number of likes on a certain social media. It will be the fact that you are true to yourself. Those who find your work can connect with it. And if they like it on a really deep level, they'll be the ones that stick around. Those are the ones that enjoy your work. Those are your, air quoting, and fans, right? That's what you want. You want the people that are going to say, not the quick like on social media, but the ones that 10 years from now are still looking at your stuff saying, hey, when are you going to come out with your next novel or EP, or when are you going to shoot your next short film, or let's see some new photos that you're doing. What are you working on now? These are the people that we want. And it's so easy to fall into this category of just trying to do whatever is like kind of surface level. But look deep inside you, look down and find the things that you can only say through your art. What is it that you really want to say? Even if it's just feelings that don't have words to them that you can't really describe, what is it that you want to show? What is it that you want the viewer to experience when they see your work? Get that out there. Let people see it. Let them see what's inside you. And those that feel the same or have those same thoughts or can connect to that will become enriched by it. And we are here to do that, right? We as artists are here to enrich people. We want to enrich them with what we believe. And you gotta have a big ego on some level to be an artist, right? I talked about that a little bit. We believe that what we say is important, right? We believe that, and we don't necessarily know. I'll sometimes sit down to like write something down on, let's say, a social media post, and it's like I don't know how to write, But when I grab my camera, it's different. It's freeing because that's my art. And for you, it might be music. For you, it might be painting, illustration. It could be any number of things that is your creative passion that allows you to speak those things that you can't say any other way. Don't hold back. Let that out. Let that be what you put out there in the world. I would love to hear from you. And I'd love to hear what you think of this. Like, do you look back at work after and feel like, wow, that's something, or do you look at it and go, oh, look, another picture that fits in with the crowd? And if it's the second one, is that what you want? I mean, if it is, it's fine, I suppose. But if you want something deeper, you've got to take a risk. You've got to say what is truly in you. And when I say, I mean produce it through the art that you create. In any case, I would, again, love to hear from you. Leave me a message on Anchor or send me an email and we can talk about this a bit more. One of the best ways that you can support a small podcast like this one is by sending a review. And every week I will read one of them. Also, if you don't have time to review, or maybe you already have reviewed, you could rate me on whatever podcast app you use. 5 stars is preferred, of course. And please share it around. Let anybody else you know that might be a creator or interested in these kind of things hear the podcast, get it out there in front of more people, and I would appreciate it. Without further ado, we've got a review from Matthew Lynch Photos via Apple Podcasts in Brazil. Thank you. 5 stars. I sort of fell into photography a year and a half ago. My partner is a content creator on Instagram. She started teaching me how to make photos and work with other influences. I did this all on phones for a while, then I invested in a camera. I needed more technical info and I found Daniel's videos on YouTube. He's a goldmine of knowledge. I am a professional orchestral musician, trombonist, originally from Pennsylvania, now working in Brazil. The way Daniel mixes career and creative advice with technical knowledge reminds me of my greatest musical mentors. This podcast is an excellent source of insight, especially for those of us who do photography as a second job or are considering a career change. Daniel's experience, willingness to teach and share are a gift to us all. Thanks for your videos, especially the series Mentoring Marissa. I'm a much more confident photographer. Thank you, Matthew. Well, thanks, Matthew. That is very kind of you and pretty cool. It's funny because of course I try to mention musicians. I love music. I played trombone for like 1 year when I was in junior high, but I don't know. I just didn't, I liked it, but not enough to buy the instrument. So I was kind of like, okay, decide or don't play anymore. So maybe I should have stuck with it because it's a pretty cool instrument, to be honest with you. And that's awesome how you fell into it. This is what happens, right? We've got this creative streak in us and it just takes something to set it off. Like, it's like, oh, you can make photos with your phone and you obviously had an eye or a desire and were able to turn it into something, and that's amazing. Brazil is also amazing. I've never been there, but I lived in Miami for a long time. Met many Brazilians. It sounds like a pretty cool place to live. So maybe I'll come visit. So yeah, and as far as mentoring Marissa, we should be doing more of those soon. That's super fun. She was interested in learning photography. She's also a filmmaker, and we decided to make a series where I would kind of teach her. And that's pretty much what it is. It's pretty loose, off the cuff, letting her kind of learn and do the things that a new photographer might do. So I hope if you haven't checked that out, you can check out my YouTube channel. That link is always in the description. Of course, you can find me on social media anywhere. Thank you, Matthew. And if you guys have something you would like to say, go ahead and leave a review because I would love to read it on the air. Adorama supports this podcast, and you can support them by shopping there online or in person if you're in New York City. Go to adorama.com and you can pick up any photo, video, or audio needs that you may have, computers as well. Also, check out adorama.com/create no matter what for all kinds of great contests where you can win gear. I want to thank everybody for listening. I would love to hear from you on this topic, getting a little bit deeper into the philosophy end of it here. For anybody who hasn't had the chance to call in, please do. And if you don't want to have your voice on the air or don't have the technical ability to record your voice, remember that you can send me an email. So you've got a couple of processes here. Send a message using the Anchor app. That is a link in the description below. You can send messages up to 1 minute long. I suppose you could send multiple messages if you wanted to that way. You could record a voice message, let's say on your phone or something, and email it to me. Or you could just send me an email and say, hey, Daniel, can you read this? The email is adoramavoice@gmail.com. That is in the description as well. So please join the conversation. I would love to hear from you, and I'll talk to you soon.